Thank you. And Councilmember Lawler, would you mind saying the pledge for us?
Mayor, let me
Oh, you got to read your stuff.
yes, yeah. Please. Thank you. Go for it. Thank you for joining us this evening for the August 16, 2022 Monte Sereno City Council regular meeting. Before the meeting is called to order, I would like to point out a few house rules to assist council members, staff, and members of the public to successfully participate in this meeting. Council members, your microphone is live, so please keep your microphones on mute until you wish to speak. For tonight's meeting, we are using Zoom to host the City Council regular meeting. At the bottom of the Zoom client, there are two icons, chat and raise hand. Please use chat only to report technical issues such as being unable to hear a council member speaking. Please use raise hand to be recognized by the mayor and enabled to speak to the council. To comment under oral communication or on any agenda item, you're allowed 3 minutes to speak per agenda item. Emails limited to 350 words can also be submitted to the city clerk and it will be read into the record. This word limit is set to adhere to the typical 3-minute time allowance. Only attendees using the Zoom application can use the raise hand option to comment. Participants calling in from a telephone will only be able to listen and cannot provide feedback or public comment. Lastly, because we are all not in the same room, all votes at this meeting will be taken by roll call.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me again and again. All right, if you can go ahead and have a pledge of allegiance. Councilmember Lawler, if you could please lead us on that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. So I'll call the meeting to order and it's time for roll call.
Councilmember Lawler.
Present.
Councilmember Luthold.
Present.
Councilmember Turner.
Here.
Mayor Lahi.
Present.
And Mayor Pro Tem Mekachek is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And the first item we have is West Valley Clean Water. I understand it's a presentation. If we can get started with that. I think it's Ms. Tucker who's going to be presenting. Please go ahead. I guess you're on mute.
Okay, hi. Let me get myself off video. Hi, good evening. This is Sheila Tucker. Can everybody see my slides?
Yes, we can.
And I'm not in presenter view, correct?
That's correct.
All right, great. Okay. Well, technology was on my side this evening then. Hi again, I'm Sheila Tucker, and I'm the Executive Director of the West Valley Clean Water Program Authority. And I appreciate having an opportunity to meet with you tonight to tell you a little bit about your new permit, your municipal stormwater permit. I'm going to kind of keep this high level. The permit in itself is over 700 pages long, so we could spend quite some time. But we've tried to focus on some of the areas that are going to have the most significant impact, either to Monte Sereno or as a region as a whole. Okay, so I'm going to give you just a quick overview of the NPDES permit process via the federal requirements, how it's handled in California, and more specifically in the Bay Area. And then I'm going to provide just a brief overview of focusing on the modified, expanded, or new requirements that we're seeing in this new permit. And you can see them listed here on the slide. Okay, so municipal regional permits, NPDES permits, all interchangeable term. They're issued under the Federal Clean Water Act. They're very similar to permits that are issued to wastewater treatment plants and industrial facilities. In California, NPDES permits for discharging into the municipal storm drain systems are issued by the state of California, and more specifically by the regional water quality control boards. And really, stormwater permits address water and pollutants that are discharged into the storm drain system that flow directly into our local waterways untreated, unlike the waters that flow to sanitary sewers and onto the wastewater treatment plant for treatment. Permits are orders from the regional board, and they include really enforceable actions that all public agencies must implement to prevent pollution from entering their storm drain systems. And just briefly, we had our first actually permit in the early 1990s, so this is not anything new. So in the Bay Area, we have a Bay Area permit. It's issued to the vast majorities of cities, counties, and even flood control agencies are all subject to this permit, including the city of Monte Sereno and the 4 West Valley communities. The board recently issued the most recent permit. It's called MRP 3.0. It became effective July 1st of this year, 2022. And that permit will be effective for 5 years, although it can be administratively extended like this current one was due to the COVID pandemic primarily. So wanted to briefly tell you about how we're kind of organized here in the Bay Area. Stormwater is such a diverse range of pollutant sources, and we all contribute it in many ways, even outside of our own communities, and we have historically. But in Santa Clara County, we have what's called the Santa Clara Valley Urban Runoff Pollution Prevention Program. These agencies joined together a number of years ago to form a vehicle for working collaboratively at the countywide level on similar programs and requirements in the permit. And likewise, we have the West Valley Clean Water Authority, which is a joint powers authority, relatively new, established in 2018, as many of you may already know, to assist the 4 West Valley communities of Campbell, Los Gatos, Monte Sereno, and Saratoga because of the common community characteristics and the efficiency of effectiveness of working on common requirements of the permit. They have, however, worked together since the early 1990s on stormwater permit compliance. It was just a more loosely organized group. So here are the major provisions in the permit. I've grouped them here into 3 categories: topic specific, kind of pollutant specific, and monitoring and reporting. As you can see, a number of new areas of, and we're primarily going to focus tonight on those highlighted in yellow, which had significant changes, and those highlighted here in pink, which are brand new provisions to our permit. So wanted to talk briefly about C3 first. This area probably has the potential to impact Monte Sereno the most. In general, provision C3, new and redevelopment, requires that any new or redevelopment project that creates or replaces a certain amount of impervious surface to treat the stormwater runoff with low impact development, or we call it LID treatment measures, or we also call it green stormwater infrastructure, or GSI. So development projects are regulated based on how much impervious surface is created or replaced on a particular site, and projects that create or replace impervious surface levels above certain thresholds are then required to implement LID. And you can see in these slides here just a few examples. There's many, but you can integrate pervious surfaces into driveways or parking lots. You could integrate bioretention areas. Simple things like disconnected downspouts are also considered LID. So under the new permit, starting July 1 of 2023, so that takes us into next year, we do have a year to gear up for regulations around this. The impervious surface thresholds for most projects are going to be dropping from 10 to 5,000 square feet, meaning more projects will be regulated across the region, and it's going to require more review, and more integration of LID measures and ongoing tracking of those. The threshold is going to apply to new roads. It's going to apply to some road and sidewalk repair projects, road construction projects, and one of the new categories we saw this year is single family homes at a threshold of 10,000 square feet of any area replaced or new. Single family homes were exempt in the last permit, but we saw them added in this go around. Again, all these changes go into effect July 2023. So we do have some time, but it's going to be an area of focus in the coming year. Also want to mention that the new permit requires all permittees to construct GSI projects within the permit term to treat runoff from assigned amounts of impervious area. So the numeric target in the permit is 3 acres per 50,000 population. And it had a nice little appendix with every city in the region and what their target was. And Monte Sereno is 0.21 acres. And while these targets can be met maybe at a countywide level through a project in San Jose or even in the West Valley communities, it was very specific that every permittee has to construct at least one project of 0.2 acres. So just wanted to briefly mention the city adopted its GSI plan in 2019, and it has some long-term targets, some goals. They weren't numeric targets by a certain time frame. But really, there were only a few GSA opportunities within the city, kind of due to the steep slopes and a large portion of the area there, that were really identified as any kind of candidate for a GSI integration. And as you can see on the map here on the right-hand side, there's some green street segments along Winchester and Vineland. City Hall and the adjacent parking lot is really a key project. And I know that's on your CIP plan. And I just want to give a plug for how important that is to design that to help you meet your GSI target of this new permit. And then, of course, the elementary school, I think that's Dave's, was also a potential public project. But as you know, Monte Sereno doesn't really have any control of whether they will do that. So that's just a highlight of the new development. Want to mention trash because it is such a huge priority. It has been in the last permit, remains to be in the new permit. It includes 2 numeric benchmarks, which are enforceable by the board. Permittees are required to demonstrate a 90% reduction in trash discharged from the storm drain systems by June of 2023 and 100% by June of 2025. And that's relative to a baseline assessment that was done in 2010 that everyone has been working towards. Now, the good news is the city is generating very low levels of trash, and you are at 100% now. We'll need to maintain that. But as you can imagine, there's much work to do in other cities across the region and even the West Valley. Next areas, mercury and PCBs. Legacy pollutants continue to impact stormwater in the Bay. Both were used in many applications, legacy and still in use today. And we continue to find them in relatively high concentrations in stormwater. C11 and C12 is going to require that cities and counties do a number of things to try to reduce those levels in stormwater. Primarily, we're seeing programmatic areas to control pollutants in older industrial areas, which Monte Sereno doesn't have, but there are areas across the West Valley that will be sampling and looking for opportunities to mitigate, and bridges and overpasses was used in the caulking materials. So any kind of future work or maintenance on those types of projects will be highly regulated, as well as materials and waste from building demolition debris. I am pleased to say that Monte Sereno has done quite a bit of work in the past permit to document a lot of paperwork for demolition permits that will no longer be required. We were actually, here's a small bright star in the permit that we were able to get an exemption for Monte Sereno and other like communities that don't really have those types of applicable structures where PCBs were used. So we'll be working with the city over the next year to prepare for and submit a justification to be excluded from that particular exemption. Monitoring, I'll just say very briefly, the Santa Clara Valley Urban Runoff Pollution Prevention Program does primarily all of our monitoring. We do support the regional monitoring program as well, but primarily rely on the countywide program. We saw a big turn left in the monitoring approach in this permit, really shifting away from just general water quality monitoring across a wide array of potential contaminants to focusing on trash in stormwater discharges and also measuring the effectiveness of low impact development in green stormwater infrastructure. So that will be a new costly program that will need to be developed. And then finally, the last three areas, just briefly mention new provisions around discharges associated with unsheltered homeless populations. All cities are going to be required to identify the extent and magnitude of unsheltered individuals in their jurisdiction and then identify and implement practices to manage pollutants associated with encampments, primarily around addressing trash and human solid waste that can impact our waterways. The city's not likely going to be impacted by these requirements, given the the lack of people without housing in Monte Sereno. But as you can imagine, it's a big new area for the region as a whole. Secondly, cost reporting will need to be tracking our cost, which we do mostly, but there will be a regional reporting framework that we'll need to feed into and begin reporting on. It's not something that is currently done with much level of detail outside of the Joint Powers Authority budget and the countywide stormwater program budget, which I'm going to conclude with a little bit about the fiscal impacts here, and we'll go into in a moment. And then lastly, there's a brand new section on asset management. So permittees are required to begin tracking all their hard stormwater infrastructure assets, including all the LID controls that are required in their communities, as well as trash capture systems, which I believe Monte Sereno only has 4. So you're good on that. But really, the extent to which LID is integrated and kind of managing that asset and long-term maintenance and so forth will be an area. So just want to conclude again on fiscal. You may be thinking, okay, how's this going to impact us? Just as a kind of an overview here, the city funds stormwater permit compliance through a storm sewer assessment on your county tax roll and your general fund. You have a residential property assessment. It's a flat rate. It's $16.58 per parcel. That fee was set in place in 1992 and has not been increased since 94. You're seeing an increased reliance on your general fund because it was originally set in 1992 to fund the cost of stormwater, and without obviously it increasing, it just hasn't been able to keep pace with that rising cost. And then just for context, our budget, the JPA's budget is approximately $1 million a year, and Monte Sereno represent 2.7% of that. So that's how much you're contributing. And that does not include the city's cost nor your capital cost. So it's just the management and programmatic areas. And then also SCVRP's budget is about $5 million a year, and Monte Sereno is roughly 0.14%. So I wanted to give you a sense of what you're paying for. And then lastly, I want to conclude just by saying that, we did a cost of service study and kind of funding needs assessment last year as part of the authority's budget. And our consultant found that given the new permit, costs were expected to escalate up to 30% over the permit term in aggregate, not including any capital projects. And it looked at, so how can we fund that? How can we help cities make that whole? And they looked at both balloted and non-balloted options. And, one option that they proposed was a new user fee. It would be likely a joint West Valley, for community potential properly related fee if in the future there was any interest in Monte Sereno trying to relieve that impact on their general fund and collect something, with the 4 cities. We were asked to come back after the November 2022 general election. We very much understand we're competing against potentially much higher priorities and much higher revenue generating measures. But nevertheless, we wanted to take a look at that. We will come back likely in our February meeting and see if there was some polling. That's actually the next steps that they thought they might do. We did put some money in our budget. There's been no go. There'll be a go, no go decision early next year. Again, just to say, hey, do we want to see how the community might feel about the willingness to support a potential future stormwater property related fee? And then we also looked at a number of other areas, or we will be over the course of this year, to ensure, like with the new development requirements, we're recovering all the cost we can around private development properties and the fees on those new regulated projects. We worked very closely with your solid waste JPA on the new hauler agreements to look at the types of fees, particularly related to trash that could be collected through solid waste. And I think we captured almost everything in your RFP, at least to get proposals on, and you can make some future decisions about that. And then also, again, it's just integral to think about what we're able to be accomplished either through the JPA, the countywide program, or even the region has a number of new projects that they're doing the management on for all the new requirements in the permit. So with that, I think I hope I talked fast enough, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have or go back to anything.
Yeah, thank you, Executive Director Tucker. Appreciate your coming to us and bringing this very complicated subject and presented in a somewhat understandable manner. We do have some questions, so let me go to Councilmember Luthor.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. A couple of questions. First, the 10,000 square foot for the single family project size, is that referring to the size of the underlying property, or is there some different definition of what project is for the 10,000 square feet? Is this going to apply to any lot that's over 10,000 feet that wants to build or rebuild? Is that kind of my general question? And I have another question as well.
Yeah, no, it's designed for anything that's maybe redeveloped on the lot or may add new. So, you know, in Monte Sereno, a driveway could trigger that.
So it's the lot itself, or it would be the actual amount of surface that's being touched?
The amount of surface that's being touched, not the lot size. Yeah.
Okay. And then the second question I have is the bigger policy question and a pet peeve and frustration, because I am pro the impervious surface reduction and bioretention. And yet we get these SB 9 and the mandates that ADUs don't count and so on and so forth. How do we deal with that? And how do we deal with that as a city and as a policy matter going forward? Because the state is telling us we have to build hundreds and hundreds of new units in a very small city and telling us that impervious surfaces don't matter anymore. Versus them telling us through our permits that they do matter. So how are we reconciling this, and what's the plan to go forward, and what are your thoughts?
I'm not sure. I can't answer that question. Would that be better answered by Steve, or I don't know if Jessica's on here. I don't know that I know enough about SB 9 to make to comment on that. But I do know that, you know, as I presented here this evening, you know, the goal of any new development is to make sure it stays at the, you know, the previous hydrology and the runoff from it. So anything, I mean, it's going to continue to ratchet down. Anything that you develop will need to be treated, and the whole goal is just to disconnect all these impervious surfaces that's directing, you know, pollution from all of our everyday activities off into waterways.
So I guess my concern about that is that, and this I think is probably in the purview of your organization in the JPA, which is to figure out how to reconcile this, because this is not something our city can do. This is something everyone is facing. We're getting mandates that say ADUs particularly are an exception to impervious surface. Let them build. And yet we're getting increasingly strict rules about groundwater and runoff, and being told that we have to do all of these things about impervious surface and bioretention and demand them on our projects. So I think this is a huge policy problem. And it's certainly beyond the city of Monte Sereno to do this. Seems exactly like something that the greater West Valley and in fact, every city in the state needs to take to Sacramento.
Okay. Well, I would be happy to follow up with Steve maybe after this meeting and try to understand a little bit more. We do a lot of legislative advocacy, not only at the countywide level, but definitely at the statewide level through what's called CASQA, which is represents all the cities in the state. So that definitely could be something that we could discuss and bring forward.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Turner.
Yes, I do have a question. You talked about the cost and the budget for this project. When we're talking about permits, how do you allocate the cost per city? Is it going to be a percentage? Is it going to be what the city has? For example, Monte Sereno, we don't have any industrial complexes. And so therefore, when I look at this, I'll say, well, you know, our cost is pretty low because we're pretty much all residential. And the number of units that we have is very low compared to other cities. I just want to ask you, have you thought about how you're going to allocate the budget and the cost for this, as well as the grants that we may be receiving?
Yeah. Well, you know, the budgets have all been pre-allocated and they're primarily based on population. So, I mean, whatever the cost of the program is, the permit is, the countywide program is, you're going to see Monte Sereno's cost be 2.7% roughly. There are some projects that if they don't benefit all 4 communities in some way, you know, we don't do that allocation. We may do a standalone project. Same with the countywide program, but in general, you know, this is the percent that you're paying for programmatic elements. Even there is a state stormwater permit fee that the state levies to do the permitting. It's relatively low for Monte Sereno, but again, it's based on population. Everything is based on population. And, you know, they're very complicated formulas that are based on MOUs that, you know, there could definitely be a future of reopening those conversations, particularly more likely when they come up for renewal. It is something I've thought about, but I've also thought that it could negatively impact Monte Sereno as well. So you have to be kind of careful about those conversations, and the end result isn't that your percent allocation is now higher.
And I do have a concern about allocating it only by population. Because if we were to look at Monte Sereno, we have no industrial complexes. So I would imagine we only have residential properties. So if you have an industrial complex, chances are your cost to maintain that would be higher.
Yes, I would agree with that.
I would suggest we take a look at that, right? So that smaller cities like Monte Sereno are not having to bear the cost of a program like this, that other cities who have bigger population, a bigger budget can actually shoulder or should shoulder.
Exactly. And I will just add, you know, I do bring this up because my communities are so small, and I'm trying to always represent what, you know, the equitable and fairness. A lot of pushback I do get is that, you know, stormwater comes from very diffuse sources. So while, you know, Monte Sereno doesn't have commercial industrial facilities, you know, all your residents do frequent them when they use them. And, you know, things like our inspection program, I don't know, should Monte Sereno help pay for restaurant inspections? You know, those are key questions. Or your vehicles and the heavy metals they produce in the streets, and the so I get a lot of pushback just because stormwater comes from diverse sources as well, and we're all contributing as community, as residents, as, you know, our businesses. So
thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your responses. I guess some confusion in my mind is when you're trying to figure out these impervious limitations. And there's a number of 10,000 feet and there's a 5,000 square feet. Are we talking about the you've got R18s, you know, whereas the area might only be 18,000 square feet, or 8,000 square feet. What kind of percentage, or is this a percentage of the whole lot that should be pervious?
It's, so when someone comes in for an application, there's going to be a calculation of how much impervious service it's either creating or it's impacting. And if it triggers these thresholds, then there's going to be a series of low impact development requirements that will be required on site. And I'd be happy to maybe come back with more information or even come to the planning commission. There's a very complicated like runoff calculation that's done to determine the size of those of the LID that's required. And is Jessica Kahn on site here or on the call here? Can't
Yeah,
really
she is,
tell. She's your resident specialist in.
she's on fluent, so maybe she can help.
She
Hopefully
may have a little bit to add here and how Monte Sereno does it internally. I think the biggest point I wanted to convey is that it's likely going to require additional review by more projects. You're likely going to recover those costs through the applicants, and new additional LID measures are likely going to have to be required on sites, sizable sites above these thresholds.
Well, that's good to know, and
Okay.
so that's a basic question. The
Yeah.
question that I think Councilmember Luthold was getting to, and I'm trying to just in the ADUs, we don't have a choice. They're going to go in, and if it's a 1,200 square foot ADU, we just lost 1,200 square foot or more that we cannot convert to pervious use. And then with SB 9, we're required to put 4 houses on every lot. And while those houses may not be 6,000 square foot each, but they'll still chew up maybe 2,000 or 4,000 square foot of additional building space, so we lose that. And then we're required to comply with this requirement of the drainage, which is excellent. It has to be done because we do have a water issue. So I guess maybe between Jessica and yourself or somebody can tell us what we need to do. And to the extent that additional costs are to be recovered, yeah, we need to look at that too, to see if we need to raise some fees.
Mhm.
So that's probably we have. And Councilmember Luthold, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to underline, since we're on this topic, for Ms. Khan and Mr. Leonardis to put cost recovery as something that you track forward here, because that is a process that we have to justify and takes time. And so we need to get out in front of that. So if the two of you will put that on your to-do list to make sure that we stay in front of cost recovery, I heard we can charge that to the applicant, and I like that idea. So just wanted to underline that. Thank you.
Thank you. And any other questions for Executive Director Tucker? If not, I can go to the public to see if they have any questions. Any members of the public wish to ask any questions? If not, we're back to council, and I don't think we have any further discussion, do we? If not, I think we'll thank Executive Director Tucker for giving us her presentation and at least bringing something to us we're more aware of now than we were before. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Good evening. All right, going back to our agenda, oral communications. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the council on any matter that is not on the agenda?
There are no hands up.
Okay, so then we go to written communications. Are there any written communications that have been sent to council?
No, there aren't.
All right, then we go to the consent calendar. Does anyone wish to pull any matter off the consent calendar? There's 2 items on the consent calendar. One has to do with a bunch of minutes and one has to do with the warrant list. All right, I just have one item on the August 2nd, 22 minutes. If you look at, I believe it's page 24. There's one item that's missing on the motion regarding the ad hoc committees. There's a motion and a second, but there's no vote has not been registered. So if you could go ahead and fix that and indicate what the vote was on that particular motion.
Will do.
Great, thank you. That's all I have. Any other comments on the consent calendar? If not, I'll go to the public. If there's any member of the public wish to address us on the consent calendar? Not, I guess we don't have any hands to come back. And do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion
make
to
the motion.
approve.
Our motion approved by Luthold and second by Turner. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lawler,
Yes.
Councilmember Turner,
Yes.
Councilmember Luthold,
Yes,
and Mayor Lahi.
Yes,
And that motion passes 4-0.
thank you. We go to public hearings. There is no unfinished business. New business is to consider nominee for Monte Sereno Citizen of the Year. And the staff has a recommendation. So can we get the staff report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager Stephen Leonardis. And as was decided by council in their annual strategic goals setting March 22nd, last March, under the category titled Provide Quality Public Service, Monte Sereno Council voted to approve a Citizen of the Year program. This will be the first ever, our inaugural year, so to speak, for the Citizen of the Year program. And many jurisdictions have these programs, but some are put on by chambers of commerce and the business community and others. But in Monte Sereno, we are doing it. We've taken the initiative to establish a program and a nomination form and a set of guidelines, and we put it out there and we marketed that over our social media and our email blasts and some other places like Instagram and such. And we did receive a nomination for Kay Rind, R-H-I-N-D, who appears to be a very good nominee. They established a neighborhood watch program in their neighborhood. They were actually nominated by former Mayor Yang Zhao of Saratoga, which I thought was kind of cool. And Saratoga is getting in on the nomination process. However, they are a Monte Sereno resident, and staff is recommending that if council should decide to select Ms. Rind as the first ever Monte Sereno Citizen of the Year, staff will prepare a certificate, frame it, and give it to the mayor to present and announce at our annual picnic on Sunday at 11:30 to 2 p.m. And that concludes our report. I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much. And I see Mayor, the former Mayor Yan Zhao is in the attendance list. Would you like to say anything, Councilmember Zhao?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. It is my honor and pleasure to nominate Kay Ryan as the Citizen of the Year of the City of Monte Sereno. Many of you may or may not know Kay well. She is an executive in a high-tech company. She's also a mover and shaker in the local community. She's the one driving the creation of Monte Sereno's Neighborhood Watch program in the Twin Creeks Via Caballero area. There are 130 residents involved in this group, covering 60 homes. This group was created not only to address crime prevention, but also to strengthen the sense of a community and promote unity in this Monte Sereno neighborhood. Kay took the initiative, recruited her neighbors, and along with 3 team leaders, they formed this neighborhood watch group. Kay communicates frequently with the Los Gatos Police Department and Monte Sereno's Emergency Preparedness Group to coordinate events, meetups, and get-togethers in order to raise awareness of crimes and home break-ins. She organizes events where residents get to know each other and become the eyes and ears for their neighbors. Kay and her team leaders were responsible for the installation of automatic license plate readers and the street signs. They created the protocols for reporting home break-ins, other crimes, suspicious activities, and unsafe motorists. They even help to make sure pets are safe too. But the work has not stopped here. Kay continues to be a vital force now, planning to incorporate the Los Gatos Monte Sereno third program as part of the Northwest Group to include disaster preparedness, fire evacuation, search and rescue, and fostering a spirit of neighbors helping neighbors in the event of a natural disaster or other emergencies. Kay and her team have worked with the Saratoga CERT organization to coordinate activities should the need arise. She also reached out to me directly to request to connect their neighborhood flocks with Saratoga automatic license plate reader system, which is monitored by the Santa Clara County Sheriff Department. She has organized her neighborhood watch group, participating in community cleanups, block parties, and other activities that strive to improve the quality of life in Monte Sereno and to make new and frequent connections. Kay is a role model, exemplifying the qualities of citizenship that we would hope to see in all residents. I believe she well deserves the title of Citizen of the Year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and really appreciate your helping out with the nomination and nominating Kay. Does Kay want to comment on anything? Is she available?
Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, she just texted me that her mom is 93 years old, just had some emergency, was sent to Washington Hospital. So she's with her mom right now.
Okay, well, we wish her mom well, and we wish her well also. And thank you so much. I appreciate your bringing this to us. Any member of the council have any questions for Councilmember Zhao? Councilmember Turner, please go ahead.
Yes, I just had a power outage, so I'm sorry. I just wanted to make a comment about Kay Ryan on the Neighborhood Watch program. I think that, you know, I've worked with her on the Neighborhood Watch program, and she has shown herself to be a dedicated and a very capable leader. I think our city needs more CERT volunteers like Kay. Recruitment is a critical function, and Monte Sereno is behind the curve. So as we get more volunteers in our various neighborhoods, and we get a lot of role models like Kay, I think it would help us and to continue and to encourage emergency preparedness in Monte Sereno. We are fortunate to have her, and I fully support her being Citizen of the Year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council member have any questions or comments? Yeah, I think this is an amazing nomination. I mean, the flock program by itself should be enough to get somebody nominated for Citizen of the Year. And we look forward to Monte Sereno recognizing the best of its citizens. I mean, we have so many people who are working so hard, and sometimes we don't know who they are. Maybe this way it's for all of us to get to know them. So thank you, Councilmember Zhao, for bringing this up. And let me just go to the public to see if any members of the public have any questions or comments on this nomination for Citizens of the Year. Okay, I don't hear any, so I guess we'll go back and see if I can get a motion to nominate her as Citizen of the Year.
I would like to make the nomination for Kay Ryan, please.
I'll second that.
All right, roll call, please.
Councilmember Luthold,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawler,
A resounding yes.
Councilmember Turner,
Yes.
Mayor Elahi.
Yes,
That motion passes 4-0.
excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Zhao again, and please convey our well wishes and our wishes for the best health for her mother, and our congratulations. And we hope to see her at the picnic on August 21st, and you're also invited if you can make it. It's at the Wasona Park. Mr. Leonardes, if you can be kind enough to forward Councilmember Zhao any details on the picnic, that would be good.
Thank you. I'll be there.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, let's go to the next item, which has to do with consideration of legislative bills. And City Manager Leonardes was kind enough to provide all the bills for us. And hopefully you guys stayed up all night reading all of them, each and every one of them. So fortunately, we don't, we're familiar with some of these bills already. But let's see, before I get too far ahead, can we get the staff report on it?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor. So as was requested by yours truly, we were instructed to put on the agenda discussion and consideration of the latest legislative bills coming out of Sacramento. We provided brief summaries on our staff report of the bills and who wrote them, as well as the complete working text of the bills. So as you mentioned, it's quite a bit of reading for council and quite a bit to consider discussing. There may be particular bills that council is more interested in than others, but essentially we're kind of, leaving it up to you how the discussion develops this evening. I don't think there are any particular parameters which would limit your discussion. And I'm not certain if the city wants to take a position on any of these bills in the future. If we'd have to bring it back for a subsequent meeting or not, our council can advise us on that. That concludes my comments, and we're available for questions.
Thank you very much. So let me just give you a brief overview of where we are on these bills. And unfortunately, we had already discussed these bills as a discussion item at our last meeting. And this Cities Association met about a week ago and voted on some of those bills. So I can tell you what those votes were, and they were pretty consistent with the position that we had taken. And I did find one thing encouraging is that the City Association is now putting in the resolution letters. It sends out that that there are cities of various sizes that are part of the association, and that requires different consideration. Just going back on those bills, I'm just going to give you an update on them. The first one was the SB 932 general plans. I think that's in suspense. That has to do with bicycle and pedestrian plans. So that wasn't considered at the last meeting. The AB 2011, the Affordable Housing and High Roads Act, that has to basically allow for converting commercial spaces into residentials. It doesn't really impact us, but we had opposed it because of our general belief that the state should not interfere with the city's council's decisions to regulate its own jurisdiction. AB 916, with accessory developing units, that had to do with allowing more than if somebody wants to add a couple extra bedrooms, the city should not be able to prohibit that, and that was opposed. The SB 897, the Wachowski bill, and the ADU or the Junior Development Bill has to do more with defining more on objective standards. I'll have to come back to that. I'll go back and look at my notes on that. But that was also that one had a problem because it allows a 25-foot height, and the concern obviously is if you have a 4-foot setback and you have a 25-foot ADU, that's going to really impact the neighbor's privacy. So that's been opposed. The AB 2097 had to do with parking requirements, that if there's going to be bus service or some transportation available within a few miles, the city could not impose a parking requirement. That was obviously opposed because there really isn't a good infrastructure for mass transportation in place right now. AB 1985 is the organic waste. There's some stricter requirements on the cities to make sure that organic waste is disposed of properly. And that was supported. Then there is the Community Energy Resilience Act, which has been supported by the Silicon Valley Clean Energy, and it is to give grants to provide more energy resilience plans in case of power shortages and all that. And that was also supported. So those are, there was one more bill on SB 1087, which had to do with catalytic converters, because a lot of them are getting stolen off our cars, and Milpitas and some other cities wanted rules that say that only licensed people can buy and sell converters, and that was supported. So that's basically a summary of all the bills that were considered in the Cities Association, and I don't think City Association is going to meet till next October. If there's any one of these bills that you guys have some thoughts on, please, it's a good time for you to share. I hope that was helpful. Yeah, Councilmember Turner, please go ahead.
Yes, I agree with pretty much which bills are opposed and which ones we support. However, I wanted to bring up AB 1985, Rivas-Roberts, the bill that would help cities with their organic waste. I just wanted to make one small comment about that, that this would allow cities to process organic waste outside the state to meet procurement targets. However, I think cities would have to enforce and bear the costs and even possibly increase staffing. So I would suggest that we should know the cost to the cities before we actually support the bill. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Councilor Lawler, I didn't see your hand. Please go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I was just curious. Thank you, Mayor. I was just curious what the position would have been on SB 92. You said it was suspended. Have they discussed a position on that?
I don't believe there was any discussion on it. I haven't seen yeah, there wasn't any discussion on it.
Okay, and then you said that they are sending letters to legislatures this week regarding their position, our position. Or
Yeah. The letters
Okay.
some of the letters have gone out because some of these bills were considered at the last meeting.
Right.
It's brought up, and they're going to be sending them additional letters with clarifying or again, making the position known.
Okay, thanks. Because the session is over August 30th. So. hopefully
Yeah, so that's why the letters will go out now, and the Cities Association, I don't think will be considering any other bills till October anyway. So we'll see how that goes.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions of staff or myself on any of this? All right, if not, we can go to the public to see if the public has any questions. Any hands on, do you see any hands out there?
No hands.
All right, then we'll come back to council for any discussion. And I don't think we're looking for any motions on any of these, unless you guys want to make a motion on it. Is this a matter that we need to make motions on? City Manager Leonardis?
Thank you, Mayor. This is unactionable, just discussion and direction. If you wanted us to bring back any of these for further discussion, we can do that at a future time.
All right.
Future staff report.
Yeah, does anybody want any of these bills to come back at a future time? Or I think the next legislative session will bring about new bills and we can look at those. But if you have any thoughts, please share those. All right, if not, then I guess we've discussed this matter and we can now go to committees and, oh no, we have a staff report or a city manager's quarterly report. So City Manager Leonardis, please go forward.
Thank you, Mayor. This, once again, is City Manager Leonardis. I am reporting to you for the quarter, which includes April, May, and June of 2022. It seems like a long time ago, but it really isn't because we had the whole month of July off. This report would have come at our last regularly scheduled meeting, August 2nd. However, we had a very full agenda that night, so we postponed presentation of this report. In any event, when you refer to the first page of the report, you can see that we have had some very strong building activity, building permit activity, construction valuation, and building permit revenue that we received, as well as the amount of inspections. All the numbers are up significantly across the board from last year, and last year was a very busy year as well. So you can see that the activity was very robust during this quarter due to the low interest rates and the continued interest in people fixing up their properties, perhaps during the pandemic era, the waning pandemic era, we hope. In addition to this robust building activity, the building department prepared emergency inspection supply boxes. These are actually very necessary. The city, to my knowledge, never had these available before I arrived, but essentially these are designed to aid the building department after a natural disaster in a number of facets to protect the community from damaged properties, damaged, say, gas supply lines, post-disaster things where the building department has to go out and essentially inspect damaged properties and or shut things down or tape things off or whatnot. So we have two of these kits that were put together by planning and building staff, and we're very happy to have those in our garage and available in the event of a natural disaster. In addition to that, we continue to work with the county, and this is actually good for our city because we're able to streamline reporting the completion of our building projects with the assessor's office, which allows, and this is through our building permit software application, which allows us to essentially get the upgraded assessments, I think, in a more timely manner on properties. So in other words, the assessor will put forward the full valuation of the newly rebuilt or newly remodeled or newly built property more quickly, and hence the new assessed value will hopefully hit more rapidly when the projects are completed, thus producing more sales tax revenue ultimately for our city. Staff during this quarter, as you know, we've been very active on the housing element, working with EMC planning. Again, this is almost old news. I know members of council and the ad hoc committee, as well as site and architecture committee members, have been working on the ADU project, going door to door. So we've had, even more current information than this report entails that you're all familiar with. However, this covers the quarter from April through June, as was mentioned. The tidbit that I want to highlight here is at our picnic this weekend, August 21st, staff will be at a table in a booth and raising awareness about the housing element and the ADUs, and doing a presentation, hopefully signing some more residents up to for our ADU program. We have over 70 at the current time, and we hope to get more. Our goal is about 225. So we will be out there in full force on the 21st. One of many things staff will be doing, as well as members of our community and our agency partners. The front office of our building department, as was requested and talked about quite a bit, was the form being translated into Spanish. We've attached a copy of the form, and this highlights the construction hours. And we had this form in English. We passed it out with every application, but brought forth by members of the community, discussed by members of council, and has since been translated by Gloisy Gonzalez Langarica. She did a fantastic job. So now it's two-sided. One side is in Spanish, one side is in English, bright orange. And as was requested by Councilmember Leuthold, we are laminating these and handing them to everyone who picks up a building permit for posting at their job site. So we hope to see these out there in full force in the future on every single job site. And I believe we are one of the only, we're probably the only jurisdiction that is doing this. So another Monte Sereno innovation to add to the quality of life for our residents. City clerk highlights, moving on to that paragraph. Very active with the iCompass software. This iCompass software has been such a huge and significant improvement over our Granicus program. I can't not even tell you, and I hope council has noticed the difference. We're very delighted to be continuing to improve, I should say, this program and our functionality that we get out of this program. As you can see, things that are mentioned, applicants to submit board and commission applications electronically, which is a better way to do it rather than just kind of scan an email in the past or whatever the latest thing was being done, as well as tracking the attendance and the history. And I just want to congratulate our fantastic city clerk, Michelle Escobedo, for her efforts on this. Continuation of the work on the records management project. Staff scanned and boxed up 10 boxes for offsite document storage. Once again, we are very paper intensive and somewhat disorganized before Michelle's arrival. She's been doing a great job getting things in order with the help of the deputy city clerk. The Fix It Monte Sereno, I am going to just kind of give us a brief report on this because there's no point being redundant and having the city clerk also give the same report. But essentially, we began calling it Fix It Monte Sereno instead of C-Click Fix. We branded it in mid-May, and we have the app available on Apple and Google Play, which are big breakthroughs. Those were requested from our council members. So you can download the app, and we continue to receive service requests We have the report card attached to this report, and you can see the activity that we got from 4/1 through 6/30. 13 created, 7 acknowledged, 9 closed. So let me know if you have any questions regarding that report, but it's picking up a little steam. I think that data is compared to, say, the last report, we had about 4 or 5. Now we have 13. So people are beginning to use it more. And I know that our next report that we do, which will probably be at the end of October, early November, we will probably have even more C-Click Fix requests. So it's starting to gain more traction. And it's been very good for staff to keep track of everything. It's been very handy. So we appreciate Council's vision in allowing us to implement the system. Moving on to our engineers report, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. We have included copies of the survey that was put out to the community. And once again, staff will be working with the consultant at the picnic in the park this weekend. We will be there to answer questions in a booth. And you will see attached, like I said, the survey that was sent out recently with the postcard. And, you know, this item could have been included with the next manager's report, but because I wanted to include it for our picnic and because it was developed during the last quarter, that's why we put it in this report. And we have what's called OBAG grant applications. So the One Bay Area Grant 3 program, once again, we are targeting the Highway 9 safety improvements, the gap closure project. As council is familiar, staff has replied or applied for many grants on behalf of this project over the past several years. Felt like we got pretty close from the federal government last year, but didn't quite make it. This time it's going to be, I hope we'll get a quick answer on this mid-September. Perhaps we can get an answer. And there's $91 million from One Bay Area Grant from the county, so we'll see if we can get it this time. But that would be wonderful to get that sidewalk gap enclosure so people can walk all the way from Davis Avenue all the way to downtown Los Gatos safely. And that concludes the major items of the quarterly report available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a pretty comprehensive report. And I think you already, last time also you gave us about half a report on some of the stuff that have been done. So if you read them together, keep up the good work. Your staff is doing great work. I don't know if any members of your staff wish to address any of these matters or bring anything else to our attention. It's a good time to do it.
Certainly, if council has questions of individual staff members, I think Ms. Khan is here as well as Ms. Estabio.
Wonderful. All right, I'll turn to council, see if anybody has any questions. I think everybody wants to go home, although it's only 8 o'clock. So let's, any members of the public have any questions of the city manager on this report? If not, I guess we'll come back to council, and unless you guys have something else, we'll thank Mr. Leonardes for his report and go to the next item, which is committee and commission reports. So who wants to start with that? Councilmember Luthor, you've been doing a great job on the ADU, so great. Let's get you going.
Thanks. Yeah, I did. I just want to jump in on the ad hoc committee regarding the housing element and the ADU promotion program. We have had some good progress on that. I want to thank city staff for all of the help, especially visibly Ms. Perkins and as well as our volunteer Ishan. And the rest of the city staff who's backed them up. I know there's been a lot of great work done. I know we're out there, Site and Architecture is out there, some other volunteers. I just want to thank everybody for their help. Keep up the good work. I know Ishan and Ms. Perkins will be getting out and sharing some information with other city council members and with Site and Architecture. I did want to comment because in pulling together thoughts about what's been working for me as I've been out, one of the most important things I've done is set up my phone as a hotspot and carry my city iPad with me. open to the pages for the sign up and sign people up right on the spot on the iPad. That's been working really well for me in terms of converting people and then getting the numbers right away. So I wanted to put that out there and look for more guidance and advice from everyone who's feeding back to Ms. Perkins and to Ishan about what's working for them, so we can share our experience. And I look forward to working at the picnic as well, although a lot of the people I've talked to and signed up were already either planning on going to the picnic or have now signed up at the picnic. I'm not sure that it's going to be as dense on signups as we might otherwise hope at the picnic, but I will be there. I'll make sure that I have the iPad for signups and the personal hotspot so that we can convert as many people as possible. If city staff wants to reach out to me at all, if anything's needed for setting up a booth, I think we had talked previously about making sure that we had not only our greeting booth, but right next to it, setting up our booth for the housing element and the ADU explanation, so we can steer people directly from one to the next. And if I'm wrong on that, that's fine. But if we can set that up, that would be great. So that we can just take people, and before they move off and find food or friends, we make them sign up for an ADU. So that's where we are right now. If anybody has any questions of me, let me know. Otherwise, that's my report for today.
Thank you. Anybody else have reports? Councilmember Lawler, please go ahead.
Well, I don't really have anything to report. Sabaka, the Silicon Valley Animal Control Authority will have a meeting at the end of August, but they will be at our picnic. Valley Water decided not to have a meeting in July. They will have their next one in October, and the Youth Commission will start in September. And like Councilmember Luthold, it's been great fun walking the streets, gauging interest, and there is a lot of interest. It's very positive feedback on our end in terms of the ADU project. And that is my report.
Yeah, you guys are all doing great work on that. Councilmember Turner, do you wish to add anything? You're on mute.
I did go out and I have visited about 60 homes at this time. I think one of the things that I would like to see, I've given Diana a report on the homes that says, I'm going to think about it, I'm not ready to sign. At some point in time, perhaps part of the process would be to get our list and to go back to those homes to get them to make a decision about signing. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you. Yeah, I've done some walking. I've got a few people signed up. I've also sent out some emails. So there's a bunch of online sign-in that have come in. I don't know if you have the latest count on that, Diana, as to how many we have. Maybe you can give us those numbers. That would be helpful.
Diana's not in the meeting.
Oh, she's not here. Okay.
No.
City Manager Leonardus, do you have any idea approximately?
I know that we had a spreadsheet which was given to me late last week, which had 70 on there. So I think we're north of 70 currently.
All right. Well, that's great. That's pretty good. Sounds good. Any report on any of the committees that you guys are on? I will go ahead and share mine on the Silicon Valley Clean Energy. They usually do a good job of writing something up so we can present it to the council. They've set up a geothermal plant in Mono County, and they're working on providing affordable housing development funding for equitable charging or EV charging for units that are requiring affordable housing. They're putting in about $6 million for those funds. There's work going on the reach codes, and I think we've had an initial meeting, and we'll probably have more meetings to bring the city up to the new reach codes. So that's going to come up. And also there's a flex alert that you may have seen for tomorrow because the temperature is really high. Everybody's asked try not to use any electric appliances between 4 and 9 p.m. That's the prime time. That's all I have. Any member? Well, okay, that's all I have. Any other comments or discussions? Yeah, Councilman Luthold. You're on mute.
Sorry, thanks. I did want to just move on to council member comments here and reach out to Mr. Leonardis about an issue, perhaps with his contacts at Los Gatos, just kind of a quality of life issue for citizens of Monte Sereno. I saw that Lark Avenue had, which has been ongoing construction for God knows how long, had repaving going on and night work from August 1st to August 10th. And I was very excited that that was finally going to be finished. And now I continue to drive it and it continues to have absolutely no improvement. I just wanted to comment, I think this is an incredible embarrassment to the city of Los Gatos that they can't complete a simple paving project that they've been working on for years now. And it's just sitting there. It's dangerous. It's deteriorating as people continue to hit the temporary barriers. So I'm hopeful that perhaps Mr. Leonardis can reach out to the city of Los Gatos and express a little discontent, at least on discontent on at least my behalf, if not others in Monte Sereno, and find out what's going on and report back to us if they ever intend to finish that street project. So that's my comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other councilor comments? Okay, if none, we'll go to city manager's report. Do you have any additional report, City Manager Leonardis?
Thank you, Mayor Elahi. Just a few mentions. First being, of course, our picnic this coming Sunday, and it is 11:30 to 2 p.m. We have a large amount of attendees this year, north of 300. So we're looking forward to that being a very successful event. We also have a number of our agency partners participating, including Silicon Valley Clean Energy will be there, as well as the usual suspects, DART, RPD, County Fire, Silicon Valley Animal Control, etc. We have also a resident who has volunteered to give volleyball lessons. We have face painter for the kids. We have a barbecue format similar to in years past. Last year, of course, we had food trucks, which was a little departure due to the pandemic, but the barbecue is back. We have an ice cream vendor. So we're looking forward to our picnic and seeing our residents in person this coming Sunday. And all of you will be there. So we're looking forward to that. In addition to that event on Sunday, if you still have energy left after the picnic, it's the last Los Gatos Music in the Park event. Monte Sereno, as you know, was a sponsor. Council contributed, I think it was $3,500 to Music in the Park, a program earlier this year. So if you would like to attend Sunday at 5 p.m. at 110 Main Street in the Los Gatos Park. It is also the last Jazz in the Plaz this Wednesday evening as well this week. So those events both available as well. And let's see.
Special
I just
meeting.
want to, yes, thank you. Thank you. I knew there was one more thing. Thank you, City Clerk Estepillo. So we are anticipating the need for a special meeting next Thursday, which is August 25th. Reason being that we have three members of our community that have pulled their papers and qualified to run in the election. And there are 3 seats open. So we want council to meet and discuss whether they would like to hold a formal election and or just appoint those members of the community who have pulled their papers and turned them in. So a decision point for council. And I don't know if our attorney Rudin has anything to add to the comments, but we will be running a notice 5 days in advance in the newspaper, letting council and the public know that there is a special meeting already scheduled for next Thursday to consider the information just provided.
Yeah, so the reason for the deadline is that the elections code requires that if there are no more candidates than there are seats for the election. If the council wants to cancel the election and appoint those person, it has to do so no later than the 75th day after or before the election. The nomination period closes, I believe, tomorrow. The city clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, but assuming nobody else decides to nominate or pull nomination papers, circulate petitions, and it seems likely that the city's not going to have more candidates than seats. So that is an action the council can take, but it does need to happen at a special meeting no later than next Thursday.
All right, you guys can decide that on, you said next Thursday, so you got a whole week there. So you can decide that. You'll know by tomorrow anyway. And Monte Sereno people always run at the last minute. So I suspect somebody will run, so.
That is correct. So just for scheduling purposes, if we do need to have a special meeting on Thursday, is 7 p.m. a good time for everyone to have that meeting?
Right, and you're talking about not this Thursday, but the next Thursday.
August 25th.
Yeah, well, it's fine. It works for me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We'll ask everybody else to work for them.
Should be fine.
I'm getting nods from everybody.
All right,
So,
all right. You're better. Okay, great.
Councilmember Turner, you're on mute.
I may not be able to make that. I'll let you know.
Okay, but we do have a quorum of 3, I believe. Correct. Okay, thank you.
All right, sounds good. And the other thing, logistically, I mean, I hope we don't become victims of our own success with 300 people showing up. Do you have enough space for everybody, and will there be enough food for everybody else? And
I just updated the catering numbers. We actually have 337 RSVPs for the picnic as of 8 o'clock tonight. And the caterers need the final numbers on Friday. So we're looking at around roughly 350 people. And with tables in the picnic areas, we should have enough space.
okay, you've checked it out. 'Cause I think normally we get like 100, 150 people or something, but okay, well, that's great. But you also probably will need more people at the registration desks, at the tables, and other logistics. So I'll leave it to the great city manager we have to figure it all out, right?
We're on top of it.
All right, sounds great. Thank you so much. All right, does anybody else have any other comments or discussions items? If not, I think we can, future agenda items. Any future agenda items you would like to see posted? This not. All right, I guess we can discuss that at the future meeting. So with that, I think we can close the meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you for everything you guys have done on the ADU thing, and thank you for the good coverage you got in the newspapers on the ADU thing. I think that's brought a lot of attention, and you might have read the coverage on Atherton as to what they were trying to do, and how they're being accused of trying not to take care of things. But anyway, we need to move on. Thank you so much. Good night. We'll adjourn the meeting.
Right.
Good night.